Best testicles I've ever had.
Thank you.
What's up, guys? Brandon with Strict Vision Athletics. Welcome to Becoming the 1% podcast. My guest today is Liver King chef Lionel. You know him. He's been all over the internet. Him and Liver King have changed the face of nutrition on this planet. You guys are going to love this episode. Of course, we talk about cooking, we talk about organs, talk about nutrition. You guys are going to have fun. Enjoy. Awesome, man. So yeah, you've got yourself in a position now where you're actually traveling, I assume, a lot more, because you and LK, you guys are moving all over the place. Does that happen? I mean, how often do you guys take the show on the road?
So like the last few months of this past year of 2023, we didn't really travel much. Mm-hmm. The beginning of 2023, we were traveling probably like once every 2 months. Mm-hmm. And then now I think we're going to be traveling a bit more starting now. And that's whenever they travel as a family. Sure. Then they'll bring me out, especially if they go like to a rural part of like Utah or something. They'll bring me out to have them cook for them and the family, or whenever they travel for like podcasts and appearances and everything else. I'll go out sometimes I'll go out if they need dinner or if I'm part of the podcast as well. But if I don't have to go out, I'll be able to stay home and spend time with my family and everything else.
It's a sweet gig, man.
It is.
I feel like we've gotten to know a lot about LK over the last, 5 to 10 years, but I'm really happy that this happened because, first off, as a coach, I wanted to know about the nutritional side of everything you guys are promoting, but I wanted to hear about, because you seem to be the guy who's actually prepping all of the nutrition, the craziness, the food that we see him going. I wanted to hear from you.
Yeah.
First off, how did you even get started in this realm? But before your partnership with LK, before all that, what were you doing?
Yeah, so I've worked in the restaurant industry my whole life. Mm-hmm. Been cooking since I was 11 years old. My dad taught me to cook at a young age. I worked with Italian chefs, yelled a lot, but they worked a lot also. I can imagine. When I came to Houston in 2009, I came to be I went to school for programming, mathematics, and everything else. I would do cooking as a side, but it was something that I knew I didn't want to do the rest of my life because it's hard working at a restaurant. Yeah. I'm sure at some point you had you worked at a restaurant at one point, whether it's a server or something, and it's just hard work, especially on a rush. And so I knew that I didn't want to do the rest of my life.
Sure.
And then 2014, I decided to give up my programming job because I hated it, and I would put out ads on Craigslist at the time for a personal chef.
Yeah.
And I remember I got one legit client. I got two not legit clients that sent me fraud checks and got my bank account closed twice.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Craigslist. And so yeah. But I started off with those two clients, build up, and in 2014 is when I started doing this full time.
Yeah.
And that was just like with no help. Tell my parents, hey, I'm not going to school anymore. I'm going to be doing this full time. Of course, they weren't happy about it. And I was a personal chef.
Yeah.
And so people would hire me out for special occasion dinners. They would hire me out for their birthday parties, engagements, and just like holiday parties also. I would go in there, bring all the ingredients, bring the plates, everything else. And I would cook them a 3-course meal, 4-course meal, or a 7-course tasting menu, depending on what it is they were looking for.
Sure.
Yeah. And so that was how I got started. And Liver King was one of my clients.
Oh, okay.
So he would first hire me out.
And this was before he hit social media the way he had.
Exactly.
Back when he was still Brian.
Yeah. I met him first in 2017, I think.
Okay.
It's been a while, but I met him first in 2017.
Yeah.
When I first he hired me for a quarterly dinner for his company. Mm-hmm. And we just hit it off.
Yeah.
He would hire me once a year at the beginning, then twice a year, 4 times a year. And in 2021, in January, his assistant was calling me every week, hey, we need you here. Yeah. And at that time, I was like, I'm booked out 3 months in advance. We can't have this. If there's a cancellation, I'll take care of y'all. I love Liver King, but I'm booked out 3 months in advance. And then from there, that's whenever he pulled me to his office and made me a deal.
Yeah, brought you in and also made you a huge part of the content, it seems like.
Yeah.
Because I can remember a time, I followed LK since the beginning, but I can remember a time before you were such a pivotal role in the content. Now it seems like there's actually more stuff with you in it than stuff without you.
Yeah.
Where did that conversation come in? I mean, how did that start to happen?
It kind of just grew into itself. Mm-hmm. It grew into itself. And so when he first brought me into his office, he was like, hey, I want to buy out all of your Saturdays. Let me know your price. I was like, all right. I gave him a number, multiply it by 2.5. I was like, here's your price. You're worth more than that. So Liver King's and I's mine and Liver King's relationship is more of like a friendship. We have a really good friendship.
Sure.
He takes care of me, I take care of them. And, Saturday dinners was what I focused on. It's like, I just need this many views, make it nice, make it edible. We're going to eat it, but I want to get these views. So money's not an issue, basically.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, cool. And that was like the first time where, I was able to get like whole cows if I wanted to, or, ostriches and stuff like that.
That was going to be another question to ask. Where do you get all this
Where do you source
I know people.
Yeah.
Oh, believe me, I've done my research, and I've a lot of calling around, a lot of just like calling up different places from the East Coast, West Coast, depending on what we're trying to get. It's like, hey, I have a really odd question, but what's the biggest squid you're able to get me by next week? Or I need a salmon with all the roe in there to squeeze out. Like, at what point can I get that? You got to call in June. Let me call my my manufacturers. Like, if you give me the number, I'll talk to them.
Yeah.
Working as a personal chef, building up that business, marketing, sales, you have to have that. You have no marketing, no sales, you're not gonna have a business.
Sure.
And so I was really good at talking to people. I was really good at getting to know people, and then just like getting them to kind of like bend the rules a little bit for us, and then like we'll pay a little bit extra, or like I'll give you a shout out or something. And
Sure.
Yeah.
It seems like this type of work that you're doing. I mean, were you doing exotic chef services before you got hooked up like this? I mean, did anyone else make these types of requests as far as culinary requirements?
Towards the end of my career, the majority of my dinners were 7-course tasting menus, and what those are is 7 courses, each about 2 to 3 bites each. And then with the 7-course tasting menus, it wasn't pick your courses. At that point, about 90% of my clients like, hey, we trust you. Here are the dietary restrictions. Surprise us. Mm-hmm. And so at that point, like there was one point where instead of serving like ceviche made of fish, I would serve testicle ceviche and stuff like that. And like you will make it like as long as it tasted good and everything else. Like, I wouldn't mind. These are people that they love food. They're foodies. They understand that. We have liver pate, we got testicle ceviche, stuff like that. And so towards the end of my career, I was getting really creative and using a lot of ingredients that you wouldn't normally use. I would hate making steaks and everything else, because you go to any great steakhouse in Houston or anywhere else, you can get a nice steak over there.
But hard to get testicle ceviche.
Hard to get testicle
Almost
ceviche.
anywhere.
Yeah. I was like, I'm gonna give experience. Don't get steak. I would tell them.
Would you always tell them in advance what this is, or would you just place it in front of them and say,
place in front of them?
Place it in front of them. Test this. Tell me if you like it.
And always at the 5th or 6th course right there, because by the first 4 courses, you build up the trust. He was like, I know this guy's he's not gonna do well. He's not gonna do me wrong and everything else.
It's more so, I think, the mindset people have about what it is they're eating than the actual taste.
Exactly.
I've eaten everything. Well, I mean, not everything. I haven't had
some
of the stuff you've done. I haven't had everything, but I've done the testicles, the liver, the heart, the kidneys. It's more so knowing what it is that I'm eating that I think wigs people out rather than the actual taste. Yeah. I've eaten things that are a heck of a lot worse. I think the worst thing I've ever eaten, just based on taste, where no matter what I would never try it again, was sea urchin ceviche. Have you ever done that?
I haven't had sea urchin ceviche, just sea urchin raw.
Sea urchin raw. So it was at a real nice sushi restaurant. It was a girl I was with, and she asked the person, hey, what's the most exotic thing you have on this? What's the weirdest thing on this menu? Because it was already kind of odd. Yeah. And the guy said, yeah, it's sea urchin by far. Yeah. She's like, all right, I'll take that. And it was exactly what you would imagine. I mean, it's the inner workings of the sea urchin, which we all see the spikes and all that. It's black, and orange, and I felt almost sick almost instantly. Yeah. That's the worst.
Sea urchin.
Everything else.
Sea urchin is one of those things where either you love it or you hate it. There's no in between.
Sure.
You're gonna taste it. It's like, ooh, this is good, briny. This is the use of the fish taste, or it's like, I'm sick from my stomach. This sucks. This isn't good. How do you eat this?
Yeah. And note to self: if first date someone's asking for the most exotic thing that they have, that's probably a red flag.
100%.
Yeah. I have a hard time with liver. What is your favorite way to prepare liver?
Man, just eat it more.
Okay.
I grew up eating liver. I grew up eating. We grew up with not a lot of money.
Yeah.
And in Hispanic culture, we grew up eating like those throwaway meats is what I call them. So the organs, the head, the tail, not so cheap anymore. But back then, like that was what you got really cheap. And so I grew up eating liver and onions, liver tacos, tripa tacos, which is the intestines, and then machitos, which is all of the organs minced up. Wrapped them caul fat, which is the fat that surrounds all the organs, and then that wrapped in intestines. You just grill those
like a sausage link.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not
Turducken.
It's truly not bad when it's cooked. It's the raw part that I think again wigs people out. As soon as you go from cooked to raw, just about everything you and LK are putting up, if cooked, most people I think would give it a shot and probably could take it. But when you are literally scooping an eyeball out of a skull, and he's just eating it, I mean that's where you're making that's a high demand.
Just letting y'all know that for the eyeballs, I don't recommend them eating raw. I don't even go into LK raw. I make sure they're cooked to a point. So
why is that?
Just because from everything that I do, I always research it really well.
Yeah.
And like with the eyeballs, everywhere that I read is like it's not the best to eat raw. I always cook it a bit, so I always make, like the last thing I want to do is get people sick, particularly LK. Yeah. If he gets sick, my job's like going bad.
On this topic, this is literally a perfect segue. Jake, can you go to Mark Bell's page and pull up that post he just did that you sent me? There is a guy, this kid. He is posting his content where he is eating every single meat source on the planet raw, including chicken. He's eating raw chicken and the juice from the chicken. I want to get your opinion on this because this is truly, frankly, it's unsafe. You see it, Jake? Yeah. Now, I understand that a lot of these organs can be consumed raw. I mean, that's steak that you could do. I don't know what that is, but so chicken. So oh man, that makes me sick. Just watching that is so much. What organs are not safe? I mean, there's got to be some to eat raw. What organs would you say don't eat this raw? You need to cook it.
I would say the intestines.
Yeah.
Just from the residual. And then with the chicken thing, in Japan they eat it. They do offer chicken that is tartare, or like that's kind of rare in the middle. Okay. It's on the way it's raised, or a big part of it is how it's raised.
Fascinating.
Yeah. So in Japan they'll make it medium rare. It'll be like raw in the middle. You dip it in soy sauce and you can eat it like that.
Yeah.
So a big part of it is how it's raised. In America, whenever we have our chickens, like the ones that are raised in the big barns that are very malnourished, that look like they're dying whenever you go in there.
Yeah.
Like
the slaughterhouses, the big factory
slaughterhouses,
farm chickens.
Just hate those. And
if a home raised chicken was properly prepared, you could theoretically eat it raw.
If you had to, I would go for that home raised chicken as opposed to one that you buy from like raised by Tyson and manufactured by Tyson.
Got it.
From the store.
What's another? I've seen there's a few ways that people prepare. We went to a restaurant. There's a nice place called Buck and Ryder right down the street, and they do scallops raw, which apparently scallops raw is you have to purify them, but they use a light source to purify them, ultraviolet light.
Okay.
Ultraviolet light, is that something that you and LK have ever put into play? I mean, do you cook with an ultraviolet light to kill bacteria before consumption?
There's so many new ways. I love this about cooking. I'm always learning about cooking. There's so many new ways and so many new techniques that are coming up every so often that I never heard of. Like this right here, I haven't heard of that. That makes sense though. I'll give you an example. Whenever we cure egg yolks, we would cure egg yolks with salt and sugar. Take out all the moisture from there, and then use those as a grate. So it would taste like Parmesan cheese, but it would be egg yolks, and it was a great way to introduce that to people who can't have eggs, are allergic to eggs, because eggs are like a very common allergy.
Yeah,
and so another way of curing them that one of my chef friends told me about was using Topo Chico. And Topo Chico, the sodium in there will help cure them, but also the bubbles do something to the membrane that help cure it and make them much more safer to eat raw.
It's a salt. The
Topo Chico has sodium in there. Yeah, it's a mineral water, so it has some natural.
So you crack the egg in a bowl.
How
does it work?
Yeah, you get the egg yolk and you put them in there and you just have it. You leave it in Topo Chico for a day.
Oh, I see. And then you consume it like the next day.
Yeah.
And having egg yolks just in a bowl that they're still safe. Like you would refrigerate them, I assume.
Refrigerate them. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Refrigerate them, and then it's a way of getting around serving egg yolks USDA certified at a restaurant.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, because when you work at a restaurant, work at a home, work with we're able to eat raw stuff and everything else. At a restaurant environment, I would not be able to do this. I would have to, like the tartare, you have to do this whole thing of putting in boiling water 5 seconds, taking it out, and then cutting out that whole edge to make it safe, relatively safe for consuming. And so to make it a restaurant safe to eat like raw eggs, that was one way to get around it.
Speaking on the terms of, you mentioned eggs and some people having allergies and reactions to them, and I think to a lot of our dairy products, I've been told that oftentimes the allergies and the negative response people have to dairy is in response to the hormones that are used during pasteurization, not necessarily the actual food itself. Meaning, again, if somebody home-raised chickens, had their own eggs, didn't have any of that process, just literally took it from the nest.
Yeah.
Is that true? Is there some truth to that in your experience?
There is some truth. I'm not a professional, so I wouldn't say yes, definitely true. But yes, definitely true, definitely not true. But that sounds very spot on. Because like growing up on the farm and everything else, even at LKs, they have their eggs sitting out, not in the refrigerator, good to eat. We eat them raw. In Europe, we were in Spain visiting my sister this past year.
Yeah.
All the eggs are just sitting out. They're naturally raised and everything else. You don't have this.
Just outside in the coop.
Yeah.
Just chilling.
But my parents, like the older generation, all my aunts and uncles, they will not eat eggs if they're not in the refrigerator. But that's because they also grew up, poor. So they will have to buy like the eggs that are mass produced, that are from the Tyson.
I see.
And everything else. So they knew that if they do eat these eggs raw, chances are they're going to get sick.
Yeah. And when you say get sick, are we talking salmonella? Like, what do you get from a bad raw egg?
Like for me, it's the runs, but like other people, it could be salmonella. It could be sick from your stomach, man. Like it's just stomach virus.
Yeah.
Is there anything to fertilized eggs being better for you, or is that just an old wives' tale?
Oh, good question.
I'm sure there is. The fertilized eggs will have more nutrition in there, but I'm not exactly sure what type of nutrition would be in the fertilized eggs versus unfertilized eggs.
Michael Hearn swears by that. He apparently consumes like 12 to 15 fertilized eggs per day.
Yeah.
And that's all he eats. Like, it's just that. Which is insane. I mean, there's a lot of guys, I think, doing stuff on the fringe of the nutrition of like what's considered acceptable or not.
Yeah.
I've never tried it, so I can't speak to it, but it does make a little bit more sense to me. Like you said, if it's fertilized, it's a little bit perhaps more nutritious. It's a little bit further developed.
Yeah.
And I know there's also places where you can get almost fully developed eggs.
Yeah,
Where the chick is almost, what are they called?
Duck balut.
That's it.
Yeah.
And it's a delicacy. Is that right?
It's a delicacy. It's as common as hot dogs are to the U.S. You
That's
go in there.
insane.
Yeah.
Just eat a half-developed chick like a hot dog.
Put some vinegar on there. It's good. I've had them like twice already.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Have you guys done that on the channel? Anything with those?
Oh yeah, I got some. I put that on there. It's not on there anymore, but it was a duck balut, and we just got so much negative feedback. But
Why?
at the same time,
is it because of the people, the humane thing? Is that?
Well, people see the duck fetus.
Yeah.
And that's the first thing they see is like, oh, how dare you? Is like, this is very common. What saved us on that one was like, 75% was like bad comments and 25% were people was like, this is actual delicacy. Like, we eat this all the time. Y'all gotta like stop that, so on and so forth. And so, yeah, we did do balut before.
It's a good segue to my next question, which is you and LK are obviously a synonymous brand at this point. I mean, you're wearing them, you're promoting them, you're doing this.
Yeah.
Have you experienced any of the negative fallout from everything that happened? I mean, with his brand in the last year, has that hit you in any way? And if so, how?
I want to say yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like it's, social media is difficult. When you think you got it, when you think you understand it in terms of followers and getting, trending and everything else, something happens, we're like, oh, I'm not trending anymore. But I want to say yes, because I mean there was a point after all that happened where if I wasn't getting followers, if LK didn't post me, I was losing like 100 a day or 200 a day.
Okay.
Yeah.
More so though, speaking to, because I think oftentimes, especially with social media, people have a tendency to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Gotcha.
Meaning, you and LK and this brand are promoting, you got your tenets of lifestyle, you've got a certain way of eating, you've got your supplements,
yeah,
and the guy gets nailed for PEDs.
Yeah.
Oftentimes when that happens, then the audience reaction is, well, he lied about this. Every single thing he ever did must be a lie as well. Let's get rid of all of it.
Yeah.
Have you experienced, has anyone said to you, well, you're the chef for him, he's fake, therefore you must be fake?
No, definitely
nothing like that.
Like the worst of it is like I'll get comments like, oh yeah, at what point does the needle come in? Or what point does the steroids come in? I was like, oh, actually step 3, you missed that one. So yeah. Like that's the worst of it, but like that's like a very small percent. But in that sense, I haven't had that backlash.
Outstanding.
Good.
Yeah.
If it's any consolation, I think anyone involved in fitness, no matter if you've been on PEDs or not, has those comments.
Yeah.
I mean, we get those comments.
Yeah.
It's like, and I don't look at all like Liver King. And it just, I think if you're in fitness, steroids are it's so incredibly synonymous with everything in the fitness industry.
Yeah.
That it's just, 1 out of every 6 or 7 comments will probably say something along those lines.
Yeah.
Yeah. But tell me about this. So this is obviously the brand you guys promote, the whole feast.
Yeah.
I see this in your stuff all the time. You'll cook, you'll have this.
Whole feast.
Whole Feast. Where did this come into play? And what has your contribution to this been throughout your collaboration with LK?
Yeah, for sure. So like that right there is gonna have all the organs that you're missing out in. So like what we promote is what Liver King promotes is a ancestral way of living, putting in some of the stuff that we left out from the old ways, and that a big part of that in terms of the food is gonna be the organs that we're not eating. Especially in America, we don't really eat the liver, the kidney, like that. We don't
The bone marrow.
The bone marrow.
Yeah.
We're just eating the muscle meat.
Right.
And so this right here is like, hey, I know it doesn't taste good, but here's a way that's going to make it taste good, and it's the whole feast. So in the whole feast, we have the pancreas, liver, heart, bone marrow. We got colostrum, which is the milk from a cow right after it gives birth. So it's much more nutritional. It has much more nutrients, has much more nutrients, and then it's also like a really yellow color, and it tastes really good.
Yeah, interesting. You
So
know, I've never seen that, yeah.
Yeah, so it has all of the organs in there, and then it tastes like chocolate or it tastes like vanilla.
I can tell. I mean, we've never partnered with any supplement company. This I actually do take, and I took this long before he was when you guys first launched this. I tried it. I've done this. I've done Mark Bell's. This is, in my opinion, one of the best ways to get those missing ingredients because, like you said, it's frankly it's expensive to cook that way.
Yeah.
It's sometimes unpleasant to continuously eat those types of foods you just mentioned, and a lot of times it's also impossible.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know where I would ever get colostrum from a just birthed cow.
Yeah.
Like most of us cannot get access to that.
Craigslist.
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 I got a guy, don't worry.
Just the title of the ad. Hey, I know this is weird.
It's only
Bear
if
with
you
me.
make it weird.
So I actually did have a question about the cost because we're dealing with meats that are not like the most sought after.
Uh-huh.
Does that mean it's going to be more expensive or less expensive if you're just buying like all the organs and everything that we're talking about?
If we're talking about terms of like a mass-produced ranch, then it will be less expensive. But we get them from 100% grass-fed, pasture-raised cows from New Zealand, and so that's what. Even though they're less expensive compared to their muscle meat, whenever you're comparing them to the cost of the like a big manufactured ranches, it's about the same price.
Got it. Okay.
Have you guys ever considered, and this kind of just came to me, have you guys ever considered doing a very elite, very curated meal prep company? Something that would actually prepare like real foods? I understand you're talking about a massive undertaking in that little sentence I just said. But.
Yeah, like yes, it's gone through my mind. Obviously, with fitness and everything else, you think meal prep.
Yeah.
I hated meal prep. I have a sous chef right now that helps out the meal prep and everything else. But like even whenever I was working as a contract chef, it made much more sense to be a meal prep chef because you get meal prep for one guy, that's like 3 months. That's a 3-month contract right there.
Yeah.
As opposed to what I did, it's a one night for one weekend. A really good client hired me twice a year, if that.
Right.
A meal prep just made sense, but I tried that a couple of times, and it just sucks the creativity.
Is it because it's very repetitive? You don't get to be
very repetitive, and I like being around people. I like being in the kitchen. People would always like be around me, asking me questions. Like, oh, I'm cooking right here, I'm cooking this right here, yada yada yada. Meal prep, you're in the kitchen by yourself or with some other meal prep chefs as well.
Yeah.
And you're just there, and you're doing the same thing. You're doing probably 25 of the same thing or 30 of the same thing, and so like for me, I hated meal prep. I'm sure that will come up in the horizon at some point because with like I said with working out, athletics and everything, with working out and athletics,
it's necessary.
It's
You have to have it.
You have to, yeah. So I think it will be in the future, just not. Sorry. I think it will happen in the future, just hopefully not in the near future.
It's very fascinating, though, to hear that your creative process is such a big, big thing for you. That this is your art form.
It is.
And that's outstanding because it is. This is an absolute art form. Being able to do the uniqueness of all the different foods and the different courses and put them all together in your specific way. I appreciate that. I really love that.
Exactly, yeah. It's like going to your gym. Like, you said, like, oh, I had a lot of artists. Like, yeah, a lot of artists, but like I see a lot of your personality in there. And that's what I try to do with my dishes also. I'm trying to put my personality in there. If I'm angry, you're gonna see that on my dishes. If I'm happy, you're gonna taste that on my dishes, and it's a big part of it.
Oh, I love it, and I mean, as far as notoriety for chefs, I mean, of course, there's Chef Boyardee. There's a few other names that come to mind, but when I think, I mean, yours is one of the first names that pops into my head.
Appreciate it.
So that's very good. I mean, you found something, much in the way that like each of us has, where we can channel our creativity into something that is now turning into a career path.
Yeah.
And that's awesome.
No,
that's
yeah.
so rare.
Yeah, like like I said, I just got lucky because I was able to identify that cooking is my creative outlet.
Yeah.
Because before, whenever I came into school, I decided that I'm not going to be cooking the rest of my career because I was working as a line cook, working as a dishwasher, 60 hours a week, not having creative freedom, and just not having a life. It's like, I don't want to do this ever again in my life.
What's the equivalent of being a coach or a trainer in like a LA Fitness or an EOS? Like, you don't have that much self-development or creativity available to you.
Exactly.
You're part of somebody else's dream.
Yeah.
You get this much creativity.
Yeah.
Not everything I want to do, I do it, and I do it for me. If the audience likes it, great. If they don't, that's great too.
Yeah, no, exactly. And when I first started, I was charging $90 for a 2-person dinner on Valentine's. This was back in 2011.
Yeah.
$90 for a 2-person dinner plus the ingredient cost.
Yeah.
And I would work 8 hours a day for prepping, be over there for 4 hours.
Yeah.
I wouldn't bring any money. $90 for that much work is not much money, but I had that creative freedom.
Yeah.
And at that point, it hit me as like, I don't mind this. I don't mind putting in all the extra hours. I don't mind
making less money
if
you get to do it your way.
Exactly.
Amen.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's exactly the trade that and I think every single entrepreneur has to make that trade in the beginning of their career. Almost every single one.
You got to make that leap. It's more of a leap because
it's a leap of faith for a reason. Because you don't know if this is going to work.
You have no clue.
most people doing what you do are never going to reach the accolades that you're at, and you're at a place too where you've branded yourself so brilliantly, where now you can reach yourself out to other people in the industry and say, hey, listen, I will make your 3-course meal. Here's my appearance fee. Here's my cooking fee. Yeah. I will do content with you if you want. Like having a meal done by Chef Lionel is totally different than a meal from any other. A private chef is a private chef, but if it's Chef Lionel, now there's notoriety just around you.
Yeah.
And that's brilliant branding.
No, I appreciate it. Yeah. So it was, like I said, leap of faith.
Absolutely.
I mean, there's been twice where I came home with eviction notices on my apartment, like really sketchy apartments I'm cooking out of, and just like making it ends meet. And I think in 2016 was when I met my wife.
Yeah.
2016 was the first year where I didn't have to take out a credit line. That was the first year I was like, I don't have a negative balance in my bank account.
That's amazing.
And then from there, just like the following year, was like just switched. Like I have money in my savings account. It's like I have enough money for this. I have enough money for a vacation. I have enough money to legitimately date a girl without having to ask her to go Dutch at a dinner. So
yeah,
if we go out, because the manager's like, I'll cook for you. Come on, I'm a chef.
And this process, this is also something to really appreciate. This process took you 8 years. I mean, if 2016 is where that happened, so in 8 years you've gone from that to where you're at now.
Oh yeah.
And I think there's a lesson to learn in that too. Everything in life that is worth chasing is not going to happen in 1 year. Almost never. There's freak accidents, and we'll call them accidents because that's what they are, where people find overnight success, and they usually end up losing it. They don't keep that success. You didn't deserve it to begin with, so it's gone.
Yeah.
But every true success story, in my opinion, at least the ones that we've usually seen, 10 years. 8 to 10 years. That's what it takes.
Yeah.
And there's a lesson to be learned in that.
Oh, yeah. And but I don't feel like I've made it in any way, but the path has been so fun.
And you know that it's coming.
It's at this point I know it's coming.
Yeah.
4 years ago I did not know it was coming.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't trade it for the world. Like to me, the path, like me getting to this point has been worth. It's just been amazing. I'm sure you can relate to that. I'm sure everyone can relate to that.
That's
have you done podcasts in the past? Or
I have.
You have. Okay,
Yeah, I have.
Perfect. Great. Yeah. That's the other thing is you've got a very good rapport in this type of a setting.
Appreciate it.
This is another offshoot from your brand that I see you going down more and more.
Yeah.
People are going to take this episode and they're going to want to monetize this on their platforms as well.
Yeah.
So you're doing this very well and you have a good understanding of where your next 4 years can go.
Yes.
Yeah. The uncertainty is the worst part, in my opinion. That's the toughest I think I can look back and say that was probably the toughest part in my professional career.
Yeah.
Not knowing if, like, what to do, like, where to go.
Yeah.
At least if you have an idea of what you want to do and it's not working, at least you know still what you want to do. And then the only factor left is time. If you have a good thing going, just wait.
Yeah. I mean, adversity is like the biggest trait, or the most important trait you got to have when you're building any business. Because there's going to be so many times where it won't be your fault. You could be stuck behind a traffic jam that puts you back an hour at a dinner that's supposed to be back an hour at a dinner that just goes horribly wrong, or just anything like that.
Yeah.
Not necessarily your fault, but it still happens, and you just have to find a way to pick yourself back up the next day, go back to the dinner, and just kill it, or try to kill it, and just like not let it get to you. But
have a short memory.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like golf.
Yeah.
I see Liver King all the time doing these like crazy physical challenges.
Yeah.
Does he ever try and drag you into these?
No, like the Barbarian was the one that he didn't drag me in there.
Yeah.
He doesn't drag anyone in there, but he really wants people to do it, and he wants them to do it for themselves.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so the Barbarian was like the only one that...
That's the one with the kettlebell.
The kettlebells,
Yeah.
the sled.
Yes.
So
off
that-
the top of my head, I don't remember the numbers.
We were going to
but
try and
I'm
do
gonna
that at
test
one
y'all.
point.
You get what?
I'm going to test y'all. What do y'all think it is? The kettlebells.
Hit me.
All right, so it's going to be 70 kettlebells on each hand.
Okay.
70 kettlebells or 70 pounds in a backpack.
Right.
120 pounds on the sled, and then 20 pound ankle weights on each.
And it's for how long?
what's
1 mile.
1 mile walk.
1
with
mile.
that. I mean, look. I'm confident enough to say I could do it.
Yeah.
I could do it. I don't know what my time would be. I've never done it. I do a lot of rucking. We all do. I do weighted backpack carries up mountains. We have Phoenix, Arizona is outstanding for hiking. We have a lot of really, really sort of short, meaning let's say under 5 mile hikes with crazy elevation. We've got Camelback, we've got Superstition. So we lead a group and we go up, every week or every other week doing that sort of thing.
And if you're in Arizona and you want to join.
Amen. But this is something different entirely.
Yeah.
I mean, you were talking about just the forearm strength alone to hold 2 70-pound kettlebells.
For a mile.
For a mile. That's probably, I think, the thing that at least I would struggle with the most is just the carry, the hand strength to keep going for a mile. That's astounding. How far did you make it?
I did a whole mile.
You did a whole mile.
Oh, wow.
It's about finishing. It's not about your time, because I know you mentioned the time and everything else. Like he tells you, it's not about time. He doesn't want you to do it with anybody. He wants you to do it by yourself. It's more of a initiation almost. Sure. Like the way the tribes, whenever a tribesman becomes a man, they got to do something. Whether it's hunt a lion, run over 100 or 30 cattle, you got to do that to become a man. But it's a way to prove it to yourself. And so whenever you're doing that, like it took me 4 hours and 9 minutes to do it.
I was going to ask, what was your time? Is it 4 hours and 9 minutes?
4 hours and 9 minutes. And the rules are you can't take your backpack off. You can't take anything off. If you do rest, you can't rest on the sled. Yeah. You can only rest on the floor. And so like that's the only condition. But it's supposed to be you by yourself, ideally no headphones, just you and nature. Yeah. And like whenever I was doing it, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. How
many times you did it once?
I just do it once. Just like the co-planner, I've only done it once.
Speaking to that as well, because obviously you're involved in the nutritional side of this whole thing, has merging with this company impacted your training at all? Do you do a 3, 5, 7 day a week training regimen? I mean, what do you personally do?
I try and do it. So I will work out. I work out to stay healthy. I eat well to stay healthy. Sure. A lot of my time goes into cooking. I'm over there a lot. Being around that environment, I will do pull-ups every so often, run a mile, whatnot. But I don't work out as much as I should. Sure. As much as I would like to. Yeah. And the main part of that is because I'm over there 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day, and I'll get there at 6. Sometimes at 7 a.m. Put something to smoke for 8 hours. Get ready for dinner. By the time I get home, it's like, oh man,
it's beyond a full-time thing.
It is.
And I mean, a lot of times the answer to that is hitting it very first thing when you wake up.
Oh yeah.
And I get it. A lot of times it's just it's difficult time management, because you're talking about, in order to really get something done, you've got to at least be able to, I'd say you got to be able to travel at least 10 to 15 minutes and get at least a half hour. Half hour, 45 minutes. So like, call it 1 hour of time has got to be dedicated to that. And you got to do it at least 5 times a week.
Yeah. And I live an hour away. Like he lives an hour outside the city. I live in the city of Houston.
Of course he does.
Yeah. And I love living in the city of Houston just because, man, It's just great food.
Yeah.
Great.
How is that? Now, where were you again?
I was in Fort Worth.
Fort Worth.
Yeah.
TCU.
Okay, gotcha. Yes. But yeah, it's just like living in the city. Great food, a lot more things to do, and Chinatown's right there. So if I have to get something weird or something that's gonna be just like get some views on Instagram, I'll go over there.
Yeah.
But by the time I get home, it's 8 p.m. My wife has an equally demanding job, so whenever we get home, we make it a good point to just like turn off work for at least an hour with our son, and just like have a glass of wine together, watch the TV, talk, and just like catch up with life. And to me, that's the most important thing. Just having that hour time, together. And
that's one of the tenets that LK pushes is bonding. Yeah. So I mean, putting time in with the family just as important as getting your physical health in. Yeah,
that's a tenet that I specialize in, bond, and not just with me or my family, but I'm really good at just bringing people around the dinner table. I'm really good, like LK and everything else, where they'll have like a 13-hour work day. Everyone, they don't see each other at that dinner table. I make sure everything in terms of the environment, the food set, the quietness, make sure everyone's quiet, and they're able to have that 45 minutes to an hour and a half just like alone. They talk to each other, and I'm really good at putting that together, and that's one thing that's really specialized in.
So it's a lot more than just cooking.
Cooking is, I would say, 40 to 60% of the battle in terms of making a great restaurant. The environment you're in, the service is going to make a huge difference. If you have a bad environment, a bad service, and you have great food, you're not going to be as comfortable. You're not going to be able to really enjoy the people you're with.
So true.
You can have really bad food. You can have testicles, and then just a really great environment, a really great service, and you'll be good.
Something that I've noticed that you and LK are really promoting, that you're not even talking about it, you're just doing it. The value of a family around the table together.
Yeah.
And maybe you guys have posted directly on this, but it's something that I see and I've picked up on. It's always happening. Every single time you guys do this, he's got his kids, he's got his family. What do you see as, again, coming from a traditional background yourself, what do you see as the value of that? And is that something you feel is missing a lot of times in, we'll just say, the American household?
It's definitely missing. When I first started this job, it was a huge hurdle for my wife and I, because I would get home and I would like go on the computer, and I wouldn't be available until like 9:30 or 10.
Yeah.
And at some point, cause a lot of fights and everything else. And then we talked, like, hey, like, if this is gonna be your job, like, you're putting your job first. Basically, what she told me. And after a while, I was like, I am putting my job first, and I need to stop this.
Yeah.
But I could see how easy it could be to kind of leave that out of your household.
Yeah.
And it is really important just to catch up with your son, catch up with your wife, catch up with your friend.
Yeah.
It's like, how was your day? Just the small details. Those small details make up your whole day. Those small details make up a person. And it's really important to catch up with that. It's really important just to have that bond with each other. And after every dinner, whether it's good, whether it's fast food, which, sometimes you have to do it, or just like a nice homemade meal, like it just helps bringing everyone around and it helps giving people a reason to sit down and stay still for 45 minutes. And talk to each other.
That's something that seems to have been lost entirely.
Yeah.
The ability to sit down, maybe put your phones in a Faraday bag or
yeah.
The phone is destroying the family.
Yeah.
Every single time you go, even if it's a nice restaurant, you see people out, they're on their phone. If there's a family of 5, one of them is always on their phone at all given times.
Yeah.
No matter what. That seems to be interfering with connection as well.
Yeah.
The phone, our technology.
Mm-hmm. No, that's true. And, that's something we're working through. It's new technology. Every time we have something new coming in, we're going to have these things.
Yeah.
We're going to have these issues come up, but we're going to figure out how to get around that. And one way that I'm trying to do that is just promoting when they're on their phone, they're going to see someone having a nice dinner of testicles. I want to do that for themselves.
You brought some gear for us.
Yeah, I brought
some stuff that you do. Yeah, please show us. I'd love to.
Sure.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, of course, we have Liver King is known for eating stuff raw and everything else.
Check it out.
But having raw organs don't have to taste bad. And so I brought y'all some stuff to try out.
Let's do it.
So, of course, I brought y'all testicles to see, because these are always cool to see.
Let's see them. It's amazing
that was
how big they really are.
We've gotten some, so especially the ones that are given hormones, because like whenever you go like to a slaughterhouse that have like the big just a big slaughterhouse, they give them hormones to have them done by like 9 months.
Yeah.
some of those testicles are like
Oh, so
the size of
grow
footballs.
They're bigger.
They're
They're not
huge.
supposed to be that big. Not normal.
I don't think so.
Did
Not
this
9
come from a
months.
full-grown steer? I mean, is this a full-grown bull?
That's probably like 7 or 8 months, and they'll usually castrate them before they hit maturity. Because if they don't castrate them, those bulls are wild. Like just try, like you'll get hurt.
Yeah,
you'll get hurt.
just going in there.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so they castrate them around 6 or 7 months.
Before maturity, I don't quote me on what that month is, but they'll right around maturity.
Joe would probably know.
Right around puberty is whenever they'll
Got it.
Right around puberty
Got it.
is whenever they'll castrate them.
Yeah,
So let's see what y'all will try.
let's do it.
All
Whatever you recommend. You're the chef here. You recommend it. We'll give it a try.
We're gonna start off with our liver mousse.
Liver mousse. Is that exactly what it sounds like? Is this
Mousse of a liver.
mousse of a liver?
No, I'm kidding.
Like I said,
It's like chicken of the sea.
Yeah. No, so this right here is going to be a liver mousse, and the mousse is going to refer to the way it's prepared, which is going to be very light, fluffy,
Okay.
and flavorful also.
Let's do it.
Just,
Have you guys ever, totally off topic, but have you ever eaten mousse? Have you implemented mousse into the diet at all?
I've tasted mousse before. It's not bad, but it's difficult to get mousse. Like in order
Dude,
to
that's good.
That's really good.
yeah, so that way there's liver mousse, and there's going to be like liver capers,
my-
eggs, egg yolks, egg whites, a little
Dude,
bit
it's
of
not
salt.
bad. It's pretty darn good.
Really good.
So very simple flavors, but
Yeah.
it's something that's good. And I would serve this actually as a pate on my actual dinner. So you put that on like a little bit of bread and a cracker, or just like a little.
I was gonna say this would go
Chocolate
really
make
well
good.
with like almost like a bruschetta.
Yes.
So like this bruschetta, maybe some tomato or something. Yeah,
Delicious.
that's good.
I
Yeah.
grew up in Alaska, so we had, instead of ground beef, we had ground
Right on.
moose all the time. So yeah.
What's the main thing you missed from Alaska in terms of food?
The fish, fresh fish.
Salmon.
It's very-
Some of that salmon you brought
yeah,
back, man.
Yeah,
is
that salmon's amazing.
out of this world.
So this right here is going to be a cheese, but it's coated with testicles, powdered testicles, and coffee.
Sweet.
From under cheese.
Yeah.
I'm curious of how many levels of this I'm gonna get.
This was good too. That's really good. He was all because not everybody here goes for the organs, and you say like, man, I swear, if he whips out like balls and starts,
I did whip them out, mate. Not mine, but
that's good.
That is good.
What kind of cheese is it?
that right there is a cheese from Iowa. That is a raw milk, 9-month age white cheddar cheese.
Very
And in
good.
there you taste those crystals and everything else. You
I
know
do.
a good white cheddar cheese whenever it has those crystals in there. Sometimes this one particularly will use actual salt in there. They add a little more salt and a bigger size of salt to bring out more flavor towards it. But the testicles will add the testicles will add nutrition and have a decent flavor towards it, and a little bit of the espresso beans will just enhance that flavor also. So not necessarily cover it, but just enhance it.
Speaking in terms
Delicious.
of the
testicles?
nutritional value of these bad boys. I mean, what are we talking about here? Breaking it down. What do testicles do for me if I eat these?
So they will increase your testosterone a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, particularly the raw ones that haven't been frozen, they'll increase a little bit more as opposed to the frozen ones also. And then also there were studies that we were reading up on, because that's the main reason he eats them, to help out his testosterone.
Sure.
And so there were studies that we read up on, like depending on the age of the age of the cow when they're castrated, they'll have a certain amount of testosterone in their testicles, and so the younger ones won't have as much. It's mainly the ones that are between 3 to 6 months, I think, they'll have more testosterone.
The closer they get to puberty, the more
Exactly.
testosterone the nutsack will contain.
Yeah, so
I love
that's the main thing. And with that, it's like supports like. So whenever you eat the testicles, you have more testosterone. You're gonna have more fertility and stuff like that. And so yeah, so that's the main reason for eating the testicles, which segues into our next dish.
Let's do it.
Of course, we have testicle ceviche.
Oh, let's go. This is the one I was most looking forward to. I was gonna say, if I'm gonna eat testicle ceviche, I'm gonna get it from Chef Lionel. I'm gonna get it from. I can't think of anybody I'd
Not
rather
many
get it from.
people have could say they had this. So there you go.
Let's try it.
As be a traditional, this will be a traditional ceviche, but what I add in there is a little bit of poblano juice to have a little bit of kick, but more flavor, more of a compliment.
Okay. And what would you eat this typically on? Like, what would you do this with?
Plantain chip, tortilla chip, just avocado by itself also.
Oh, so just like a sliced avocado with this in the middle.
Yes, the exact same way you would eat ceviche is the way you would eat this.
Yeah, let's try it. Let's do this.
Not bad.
Dude, it tastes exactly like ceviche, like from anywhere else. I can't even taste the difference. That's where we draw the line.
I'm not a big ceviche guy, just in general.
What about a testicle guy? Pun intended.
Pun intended, yeah.
Big testicle guy.
Testicle Tuesday.
Out of all the organs, raw organs that
That's
eat raw,
great.
those are my favorite. The testicles, and that's like no. I know it sounds funny, but that one has the best
Jake
flavor.
pass it back.
That is very, very, very doable.
Yeah.
What is the mixture? What do you have in there? You have some cilantro. You have. Is there some lime in there?
Yeah,
Is that what
so
I'm-
lime juice, lemon juice, 2/3 part lemon juice, 1/3 part lime juice, salt, cilantro, and then poblano juice also.
That's very good.
Yeah.
Of all the ways that, because again, doing them just like this, like if you were to just dice this, put it on a plate, and
Oh,
try to
yeah.
eat it, that's rough.
Yeah.
That's tough. But that is really, really good.
Yeah.
And
You won't
it's-
know it's testicles because
No.
it's cubed up and everything else.
You can't even tell because with ceviche, typically, what does a restaurant ceviche usually contain?
A white fish.
A white fish of
Yeah.
some kind. Yeah. It literally looks and tastes exactly the same. I can't tell.
Eating them raw, it reminds me of a raw clam.
Yeah.
And so the way you eat like raw clams, I always tell people, they'll message me, I want to eat raw testicles, blah, blah. I was like, well, A, make sure they're frozen for at least 2 weeks before you eat them. I don't want to be responsible for you getting sick. That's what we do. And then B, if you eat raw oysters or raw clams, prepare them the exact same way you would eat those, and you'll be good.
Got it.
And that's the best way to start off on them.
Yeah. That honestly may be my favorite. That ceviche is really darn
Yeah,
good.
yeah,
I could throw that in anything.
Pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. I've been surprised and pleasantly for all of these
Yeah.
dishes.
Yeah, so
That's great, man.
Yeah,
Thanks for
whatever we
bringing them in.
Thanks for
No,
bringing
yeah,
that
for
in.
sure.
Seriously. You got to show us that knife. At least once I got to see
I
that
know
thing.
the knife that I cut myself with.
Yeah, right as you walked in.
Oh, that's gonna kill me with
It
that.
was
My-
literally my very first question when I saw it was like, "Hey, is that thing sharp?" And you're like, "Hey, I cut myself." With
I just
that."
cut myself.
It is sharp.
My wife like inspects my my hands every time I come home. She just gets pissed off every time I come home with a new burn or a new cut. And
Well, it's got to be kind of an occupational hazard. I mean, being a chef, you're always working with your hands. You're always working with deadly objects.
I always work with my hands. I haven't cut myself with a knife since 2012.
Oh wow!
That's my first time cutting myself with a knife
like
since 2012.
literally just now.
Yeah. And 2012, I was really hungover. I was doing a food demonstration, so I had 11 people around me, and I was
Yeah.
cutting filleting a fish, a snapper. And I remember I was talking, and I felt a slip. And I just like felt something. I was like, "Oh man!" Everyone's looking at me. I didn't look down yet. It's like, "Chef, there's blood everywhere." And I checked down. There was all my blood went all over the fish. So I had to.
Oh, of course.
That was fun.
No, I've heard stories from people who work in the industry that you can get. Oh, let's go. So, I gotta ask, was this purchased because you just thought it was
It
so
looks cool.
You thought it was cool.
How cool is that? Come on. Because at this point, we're
That thing is enormous. You could hack down a tree with that thing.
I have.
I gotta get a picture of you with it.
I gotta get... That's insane. Oh, we do a bam. Uh-huh.
Put it sideways a little bit. Yes. There you go.
Oh man, that's cool. That is very impressive.
But that one just looks cool.
This is way bigger than it looks on social media.
No, yeah.
This thing is like 3 feet in length almost.
Yeah,
it's like
That
God of
is
War.
huge. It's serious. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. It's like the God of War sword. And you literally use this in cooking.
Yeah, I use that. I use it for mincing, and I put a reel up there. Like I was pleasantly surprised how useful it was because it looks really cool. But for mincing, so I looked up a Turkish mincer to find that knife.
Yeah.
And there's one famous chef who's like always staring into the camera and like has a big smile on his face whenever he's cooking, and he uses those a lot. So that's where I got that idea. And
And the technique, you use both hands.
Both
You go
hands,
like
you
kind of
just-
like a teeter-totter, up and
Exactly.
down the thing. I mean, it makes sense.
but it's useful. Like it was very practical.
Are you familiar with the ulu from Alaska, or like the Eskimos used? It's basically this, but a lot smaller. And
Put the
you've
mic
got a
to your
little-
mouth, Jake.
You've got a little handle right here, and you're just pressing down, going back and forth. Same kind of concept.
think so.
But it's a lot smaller.
Yeah.
I'll look at it after. I do have a question when it comes to like practical use for people that don't have a chef that they're cooking at home. Are there specific blades that
Peasants.
you would recommend? Exactly. Is there specific blades or specific brands that you would recommend for the common person at home?
So my most important advice for that is going to be get a knife and get used to it because that's going to be your best friend. I have several knives. I'm really comfortable with. I have a Shun Japanese knife that I've been using for the past 4 years, and with that one I could chop really fast, do tricks with it, and everything else. But if I get another knife that has a slightly different off balance or something else of that sort, I'm gonna cut myself.
wow.
And so it's very important just to have that weight. Having that knife that you use regularly, you're going to be so used to it. You're going to know just how high you go with it, how sharp it is, the center of gravity of it, to how to hold it. And that's my best advice. But a chef knife is always good to have in the kitchen. A fillet knife and a paring knife. If you're able to get 3, I will get those 3. Or if you're able to get just one knife, then a chef knife is very important.
And the maintenance on those tools, I mean, there is something that goes into it. Like you have to, I assume you have to sharpen them periodically. You have to. What is the maintenance on it?
So, like for instance, if you have a German knife, doesn't it have a different German knives and Japanese knives? I'll give these 2 examples. German knives they're gonna have different types of steel. The German knives gonna be very durable.
Yeah.
So with that one, you could chop for months straight, and you'll get it sharpened.
Sure.
Use the honing steel to maintain the blade. So the honing steel is that big steel. It doesn't sharpen the knife; it maintains it. Each time you use a knife, it kind of contorts the blade a little bit.
Oh, interesting.
And the honing steel will kind of bring it back together.
Ooh,
but in order to sharpen it, you got to use a stone, and so the stone will actually sharpen it. So as long as you maintain with the honing steel, you'll be good.
And you do this yourself. I mean, with a stone. Do you use an oil of some kind when you do it?
I use a wet stone, which is water.
Got it.
Yeah. I stopped taking it. I stopped using it. I stopped taking it to a professional sharpener until recently. But mainly because I took it one time to Sous La Table and they messed up my knife. I never did that again. So I learned myself how to do it. But yeah. So German knives will have a more durable steel where you don't have to maintain it as much. You can like abuse it and you'll be good. You get sharpened every so often, you'll be good.
Yeah.
Japanese knives, on the other hand, they're malleable, and they're malleable for a reason. That's how they get that very sharp point on it, that very sharp edge on it. And so because they're malleable and because they're very sharp, you got to maintain it a bit more. So with that one, you do have to not only sharpen it with a stone, but different grits of stone. And like just think of a stone like the different grits gonna have. You start off with like a stone that's gonna be very gritty. That's gonna take off that first layer. Then you go like just to a finer and finer grit to get it a very
like a sandpaper.
Exactly.
It's like one gets thicker, and then you can go finer, and if you want to get really down to like an almost soft sandpaper, there's just different grits of it, just like the stone.
Exactly. So this right here will be comparable to a German steel. So that is a hybrid butcher knife that my knife maker made me.
Oh, that's sharp as a razor. I can see it from here.
So it's sharp, but it also has a thick and durable steel. So I could like cut through cartridge and everything else, and I'll be fine with that one. I could cut through
beautiful.
I could cut through anything with that, and I'll be good. As opposed to my other knife. This right here is a handmade Japanese knife. So that one is super sharp. I haven't sharpened it recently, so it's not going to be as sharp right now, but it's still very sharp.
Wow.
And what is the term used for the steel? I see that it's kind of a layered steel. It's got different colorations to it. What's that called?
So that right there, they just buffer it to make it look nice. So they'll do different things to make it look nice.
Oh, this is so cool. It has is it Japanese?
Yeah, handmade Japanese knife.
What do you know what it says?
I don't know what it says. If it says loser to me or something, I don't know. But
how hilarious would that be? If that's what it said.
Know, right?
You didn't even know. You'd be like, I don't know what it said.
I don't know. It's like having those. It's like having those tattoos of the Chinese characters and not knowing what it says. But
it's an interesting. It's an entire world.
It is.
I mean, if you go back in history, this was one of the top occupations someone could have.
Yeah.
Was creating knives, swords, weaponry, blacksmith. This is a beautiful.
Yeah.
Think of the evolution of that.
And with that one, I wouldn't be able to comfortably cut a potato with that one because there's a chance where it'll bend the steel. That's how malleable it is.
Oh wow!
But you need that in order to get that sharp edge. But
so what would you use this primarily for? The malleable steel.
I would use that one for. I rarely use it for chopping like onions, garlic, and everything else, but mainly for whenever I'm cutting thin slices of fish, meat.
Got it.
And like fish, meat, organs, or stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. It's for the layman. I mean, someone who doesn't do this, doesn't have an understanding of this world. It's so fascinating to see that every single one of your knives it's like going golfing. Like every single club is different.
Yeah.
Everything is used for a different specific purpose. To the layman, it's like, yeah, I got one knife. It's in my kitchen. I use it for everything.
Yeah.
The end.
And there's nothing wrong with that. Like my dad has that. I grew up having that, and like you just whatever. When I started getting more money, it was like knives are my choice. So
yeah, just
I like
reinvesting.
having them. Yeah.
Just like when you become a more proficient golfer, you buy more clubs, things you didn't have before, and hopefully that improves your game.
Using a putter for a driver,
Hopefully.
and
hopefully, but probably not. Hey, Lionel, dude, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on. Seriously.
Thanks for having me on.
Dude, it's been so cool.
Yeah.
If people wanted to get in touch with you, if they wanted to ask you questions about nutrition, about your process, anything like that, or even to hire you, if that's something that can happen, where would they go?
Well, I'm not for hire right now. Liver King has all my time at the moment.
Beautiful.
And, like, production and everything else. But just on my page, Liver King Chef will be the main thing of just seeing everything that we do. We do a lot of fun stuff. As you can see, like a lot of hobbies, a lot of a lot of creative stuff that you wouldn't be able to find in a lot of other places.
And where do they go to find this? The whole beast. Where do they go for this?
The Whole Feast?
Whole feast.
Yeah.
Excuse me. Yeah.
It's on Liver King's page. If you go to the link tree, that's where you'll be able to find the Whole Feast.
Okay.
I need that off the top of my head.
Perfect. Outstanding. Well, guys, that was awesome.
Yeah. Thanks for coming in.
on.
Oh, yeah, for
appreciate
sure.
it.
Thanks for trying my testicles.
Thanks for bringing it
Oh.
on.
Oh, yeah.
Best testicles I've ever had.
Thank you.
I'm clipping that at the beginning. Thank you guys so much for watching that episode of Becoming the 1% podcast. If you like the content and you want to see more of it, hit the like and subscribe. Activate that notification bell as well. We really appreciate it. If you guys want to see more of it, we actually have the Becoming the 1% Instagram, and the podcast is available on Spotify. For our socials, we have Strict Vision Athletics on Instagram, we have it on YouTube, and we have it on TikTok.